Like many of you, I have gone down the rackless bag route over the last couple of years, but to be honest, in my heart of hearts, they are not my favorite kind of bag. If I were to pick one type of bike bag to run for all of eternity, it would be the boxy-ish Rando bag. In this video, we're going to take a look at a modern interpretation of the Rando bag and Rando rack. And I gotta say, I do miss using this kind of bag. I used to use them in my really formative cycling years, and they always felt like a security blanket because I could carry whatever I needed for a day's ride or a week's ride. This bag and rack combo is by two brands that are different companies, but they work very closely together. The first is the brand Allygn, which makes these really cool racks. We're going to be taking a look at two of them. The Allygn Diamond Rack, which is kind of a smaller arrow wedge-shaped front rack, as well as its burlier, more off-road oriented grill rack. On the bag side of things is made by a company called Gramm Tour Packing, and we're going to take a look at three bags. They're essentially identical except for how the dimensions are distributed. There is the Diamond bag at 7.5 liters, the Diamond Tall bag at 11 liters, and the grill bag, which is the largest of them all at 12 liters. Let's look at the bags first, since they all essentially function the same way, and the only real difference is dimensions. As you can see, it takes the traditional Rando shape, but makes it a little bit sleeker, a little bit more modern. Instead of a plastic mat case on the top, you've got these bungee cords, which is a great place to store layers like a jacket or gloves. On the sides, there are D-loops so you can run a shoulder strap. And the way that it attaches to the racks are with these two straps. The first one is this front one, which is a big, thick, and herky Velcro strap. This goes around the tube of the rack and back onto itself. And on the other side, you have this piece of webbing strap, which connects to itself after you loop it through the rack using a fidlock buckle. So super slick, super easy to remove and to put back on. There's no needing to thread like a leather loop through a buckle and then finding the hole. A really nice modern touch to how these bags attach. Another nice thing about this bag is so far it seems to be holding its form pretty well. There's a lot of stiffeners inside, so it holds its shape. You can see from the side profile that it has this quasi arrow shape, if that's important to you. In terms of opening and getting into the bag, it uses two fidlock nubbins here, for lack of better terms. They're actually super easy to open and to close. You literally just give this a little tug and you're open, and to close it, it finds the hole by itself fairly easily. Typically, other Rando bags I've tried, there is one long elastic strap and it goes over the stem. In this case, there are two straps to undo, so it's marginally slower but a lot more secure. So when you undo this, you'll notice that the bag has this kind of what they're calling a origami closure. So it folds into itself and kind of envelops the contents really nicely. So if you were to take a spill, things wouldn't fall out. Unlike other Rando bags where it's a singular flap, but the sides are essentially open. If you overstuff it and you lay your bike down, things may fall out. With this, since the sides basically tuck into itself, not quite hermetically sealed, but a lot more secure. If we look inside, it's actually fairly plain. You just have one big compartment. There are some mesh pockets to the front and the back of the bag. Nothing on the side, so it's pretty much like a big kind of box. And that's about it for the interior. I did find if I was feeling particularly lazy, I could undo one of the straps and do a little bit of a reach inside and grab something really quick as long as it was near the top. So what it gives up in terms of quick access, it does make up for it in terms of having a really nicely secured package. And that's about it. The bag is fairly minimal. It doesn't have side pockets. It doesn't have rear-facing pockets here. There is webbing here with spaced intervals, so you could potentially clip things to the front. I don't know that they make accessories necessarily that go here, but it's pretty svelte and minimal. So this form factor of the bag essentially comes in three sizes. This is the standard Diamond bag at 7.5 liters. In terms of sizing, I feel like it's a little bit bigger than the Swift Paloma. If you guys are familiar with that bag, I think it's also larger still than something like the Ortlieb Ultimate 6. So it's a fairly good sized bag, even though it's the smallest one in the range. The next size up is this one, and it is the Diamond Bag Tall. This one increases the capacity to 11 liters. Essentially functions the same, but it is taller. Same kind of overall footprint, but you do get more volume. And lastly, there is this one, which is the grill bag, which is designed for the wider grill rack. Again, virtually the same in terms of features and how it attaches. It's about the same size as the Diamond Tall, but it's distributed a little bit differently, a little bit wider profile. So how do you choose between the three? I think if you're more of a minimalist and don't tend to overpack, then the standard Diamond bag is probably your go-to. That said, I am not that kind of person. I actually find myself using the Diamond Tall a lot more than the standard Diamond one. Especially now that we're here in the winter, I can put like a puffy jacket, a puffy vest, have a whole variety of different layers and gloves that I can change in and out of during a ride. One thing to note about this is depending on how you set up your handlebars, it will stand proud of your handlebars. So if that's gonna annoy you, that's one thing to consider. A close second to the Diamond Tall is the grill bag. Again, similar in volume to the tall version. Slightly lower, however, and that volume is spread out a little bit more horizontally. The biggest thing about this is that you will need wider handlebars to use the grill bag. But if you're running flat bars, alt bars, or handlebars that are like 44 or 46 centimeters, then generally not a problem. If it were me and I were to choose one, I would probably, it's a tie between the grill bag and the tall Diamond. I figure if you're gonna have a rack and you're gonna have a bag, you might as well have a good capacity one and try not to fill it, rather than start off with a small bag and be wanting more and wanting to buy the larger bag further down the line. Another thing to note is, although they're designed to work best with the Allygn rack, they will work on other Randoneuring style racks. On the webpage, it does list all the compatible racks, so things like the Nitto M12, the M18, the Velo Orange Randonneur and Constructeur Rando rack. So while it fits the Allygn racks the best, you can use it with other Rando racks, which is good to know. So moving on, let's talk about the racks. We've got two racks here. The first is the Allygn Diamond Rack. It's made out of thin-walled steel. Another nice touch is that it has light mounts. The black versions of the rack have light mounts on the other side, whichever side that is for the folks in the UK. And Japan, I guess it would work in Japan as well. And the way it attaches to your bike is through your fork crown hole, as well as struts that connect to mid-fork eyelets. This is the bag that the struts come in. And this is really cool because you basically get like a hardware store's worth of hardware to make sure that it'll fit on almost any configuration of fork hole. Another really nice thing about the Allygn rack is the manual. It comes and shows you the rack installation. It is one of those racks where you have to, measure twice and then cut the stays to fit. But in terms of rack installation, this might have the best instructions I've ever seen bundled with a rack. So kudos to the folks at Allygn. This hot pink / magenta is the diamond version of the rack. And you can see how it connects to the fork crown is this tube. And this is really elegant, unlike some other racks which use like a bent aluminum diving board, which can sometimes rub against the headset of your bike depending on the geometry of the fork crown. This tubular design totally bypasses that. The way you adjust how level it is by using spacers to adjust how far forward the rack will stick out. But both these racks work best with bikes with kind of normalish road head tube angles, so 71 to 73 degrees. Here on the Fog Cutter, it's kind of a best case scenario. So you can see how I can line up the head tube angle and the rack backstop fairly parallel and looks pretty good. On the Sklar, if the rack is run level, you can see how the backstop kind of diverges from the head tube angle of the bike. It's mostly an aesthetic thing. If you wanted to match the head tube angle with the backstop, the front of the rack would be pointing slightly upwards. But just something to keep in mind, if you have a bike with a super slack head tube angle, you're gonna have to make some decisions. Installation again is pretty straightforward. You know, the instructions are really good. You do have to have a hacksaw and know how to use it, and make sure you measure twice or thrice before cutting. One thing to keep in mind, which I wish I had done actually, is position the rack with the bag that you're going to use. Initially, I'd set the rack just so it looks right, but didn't consider the bag itself. And the bag is a little bit close to my handlebars. I can still get my fingers around the handlebars, but I wish it were a little bit further out. This makes a bigger difference, especially if you're running the tall version of the diamond bag. All right, so that was a lot to go through. So what do I think of this system? I think the racks are awesome. I love the hot magenta, great documentation. I think having that tubular connection to the fork crown classes it up a fair bit rather than just having the typical aluminum diving board. It's been super sturdy, you know, on the road as well as the gravel roads out here in Girona. In terms of the bags, you know, there's so many clever things. You know, I love the use of fidlock here to open up the bag, you know, the fidlock on the buckle. And although it only uses 2 straps, one in the front and the rear, it's really secure. I love the shape of the bag. They don't look like you're cosplaying Eroica all the time because they're a little bit more modern and svelte looking. If I do have one complaint, I sort of wish that they had just side pockets or something where I can put a phone. I find myself using a little top tube bag just so I can put a phone and get quick access to it. You know, not the end of the world, but the exterior is very minimal and no little pockets to put doodads and all that stuff. I've been using these bags a ton during the winter. Again, great place to put layers. Here in Spain, in the morning, a ride can be in the 40s when you first get out, and then by the end of your ride, it's nearing 60. You're constantly taking layers off, putting them back on, swapping in for lighter layers, heavier layers, and having a bag and rack system like this is perfect for that. I think these bags in particular and Rando bags as a whole really suit my personality. I'm not the most minimalist person. With these bags, we can carry some binoculars if you want to go birding, or I can carry a small art kit so we can do a quick sketch in the middle of the ride, and of course other bike related things. I've totally missed having a randonneuring bag, and it's nice to start using one again with kind of a modern reboot of it. Super well made, and the folks behind both Gramm and Allygn and Fern, which is the related bike brand, nice as people. I don't know what the availability of the Gramm bags and the Allygn racks are in the US. I think I had asked them and they had like one bike shop or dealer. But I highly recommend these, especially if you like the concept of the Rando bag but don't want the leather trim. If you don't want to cosplay a vintage bicycle quarterly, we're going way back here, and want modern touches, like the use of fidlock, smart, intelligent use of cordage, then definitely check out Gramm and Allygn. I will put the links in the description below. If you're kind of deciding which one to choose in terms of size, me personally, I would just go for the bigger one because you can always put less in it. Optimistically, you can always put less in it, rather than getting one too small and then like, I should have just bought the big one. So that's my 2 cents. I love the Diamond Tall. I love the grill bag version. All the bags are excellent. It's just a matter of preference and how much stuff you're gonna stuff in here. One last note, we're coming to the end of the year. Another year of making nerdy bike videos. If you guys have been digging the channel, please consider supporting us by joining us on Patreon or buying some merch from the store. We still have some stem caps left. We've got some fun new Party Paste casual hats. We do very little in the way of sponsorship, and we're largely viewer supported from people like you. That's why we can say what we want to say, and we can make videos about products that aren't huge, that aren't sponsoring us or giving us money to talk nicely about them. And I think in this day and age, that's kind of a rare thing. If you like the sound of that and want us to keep going, you know what to do. And for all of you guys that have been supporting us throughout the years on Patreon and buying stickers and merch, totally appreciate you guys. Thanks for hanging in there as we make this transition to Spain and get our footing so we can make more videos. As always, everybody, keep the supple side down.